Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmons, the agency coach, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. And on the podcast today, we've got Ulrika Viberg, all the way from sunny/cold Sweden. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm fine, thank you. It's snowing today, so white and crispy in Stockholm. Not so sunny, though.
Yeah, well, you've got a good few months before your one day of sunshine.
Exactly.
So, Ulrika, you are the founder of Unikorn.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us all about Unikorn. Give us a plug. What do you do best?
So Unikorn is an SEO agency, and we specialize on user-centric SEO, which means we always take the end user in focus whenever doing technical SEO, content strategies, or strategies in general, digital ones such as that. And everything we do is based on what the end user is looking for, and search intents, etc., etc.
So does that sometimes cause not difficult, but sometimes harder to have conversations with clients when they think that they know their client, their own customers, and you're saying this is the data that proves this is what the user wants?
Well, actually, when starting to let them know or like talking to them about, because yes, of course, usually they say, well, we just want to sell products, because that's usually what my clients want to do. And then the product pages are the most important things, and they don't want to have fluff, etc. But they themselves are also customers for other people, so they do know how it is to be a customer, and just have to tag into that and say like, but how is it when you shop things? Don't you want to know stuff about it? Don't you have questions? Don't you want to know like, how is this done? Or do you wake up knowing everything in the morning? No, of course not. They also use Google. So their customers also use Google, and they understand that. So
absolutely
not so hard. Just
and I know this story, but not all the listeners will know this story. So tell me, how did you start running the agency, and how long's the agency been running?
So I started Unikorn as the business. It's already almost 7 years ago now. So I was employed, or I was contracted by eBay as what they call an AWF. They call it available workforce. So eBay was actually Unikorn's first customer or client. And yeah, exactly. And so I wanted to stay in Stockholm because I just had been living in Berlin, etc. And I wanted to stay here in Stockholm, but they wanted me to have a global role. So this is how we sorted that out, me invoicing them. And of course, then I need to have a company so I can send invoices. And as you know, as Unikorn or as SEOers, we always have to do different things, like things we don't know about yet. So we have to research and everything. People tend to ask us all sorts of things to do, like really weird stuff. So in a way, we are unicorns because we can do the impossible. we tend to do the impossible, and the things that no one expected us to do, and even us, we didn't expect us to do all these things, but we did. So that, and also the domain was free, so that helped.
And I mean, that's a big part of it if you know anything about SEO.
Yes. Okay, started with,
and you didn't end up with uni-corn.se or something like that. Like
No,
everyone ends up rummaging through all of the different versions of ways of saying the same thing. You end up with I've seen so many agencies that have gone for like .io or .digital now because they can't get their own brand name. It's just running out of words. So 6-ish years running the business. The agency's been going quite well for quite a while now. What do you think has been one of the biggest things that you would say was a success over that course of that time?
So I'm insanely proud of myself starting a business to start with, because that has been a lifetime goal of mine. So I'm super happy that I I ticked the box. I'm super happy about that, and I'm super stoked about myself. Um, but also having staff that people actually want to work with me, I think that is one of the biggest achievements, and also that clients want to work with us is also one thing. But the thing that I'm most proud of and think is the biggest success is how amazing my people are. Like the my employees, like they're so good, and they're so good people, and I'm so happy that good people want to work with me.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most important, because money, it comes in. You make money. If you do a
Comes and
business,
goes.
money comes in.
Comes and goes.
So yeah, exactly. But good people, I think that is it's hard to find, or it's just, I don't know. Maybe it isn't hard to find. Maybe it's just that you need to trust them. But I'm so happy that we have this really nice work environment together. So that leads me to the thing that I'm most proud of, and that and that is the culture that we have in the company. Because I've been working at other companies, and everything is top notch, and you have the most talented coworkers, the best managers, and there's a lot of money, and you can do everything, but the culture is crap, and then it can't be changed, and you have to like tag along with that and work against it. It feels like the culture is working against you.
It does. And let's talk about that for a second, because I've found in the last couple of years, more and more talking to digital agency leaders, I realized that quite a lot of people, leaders as well as other just general employees as well, kind of think culture is a mixture of like pizza parties and office pub and bar trips, and everyone kind of mucking in together, and I think if you have a culture where everyone helps each other out, but it's implicit that you have to, that's not a culture. That's we're helping each other because we don't want our friends to be screwed over. What kind of culture have you cultivated? How does it, how, if I was to become an employee, what would I feel? What would I be involved in?
So we work actually actively with having an open mind, but also open space where we can feel safe, and where we can talk to each other. So we have, once a month, we have different activities, like games. Yeah, sometimes we role play each other, and sometimes we just love boost each other, and sometimes we just talk about the fears that we have. But we are very open, and like having these it's not like sessions, but it's like we have we do role like things, games, and say like, okay, let's talk about our strengths, let's talk about our weaknesses, and let's talk about what makes us stressed out, and let's talk about how the rest of us can help you out when you feel stressed out. And doing this, of course, in the beginning, it was a little bit like we do this not so seriously, but now, since we've been working together for a while, we can feel that it's okay to open up and ask for help, and say that I'm having a crappy day. I just need some love today, and then we love boost that person, and etc. So yeah, it sounds very
no. So what if let's boil that down, distill it down into something.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've created a culture which is essentially built on like a good amount of trust and emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Which is great, because as broad as that is, it allows people to be vulnerable, but also allows people to take feedback and advice in a way that they understand comes from not a position of I'm in charge, but it comes from a position of this is how I see it, the right way to do it. And they feel like they can trust you enough to take the feedback on the opposite direction as well. It's cool.
Exactly. But also as a manager, it's super important that I show the same vulnerability to them and also ask them help for help when I need it. Like
Yeah.
when I also have crappy days.
Yeah.
And that also can help me because we're humans.
And the last thing you could do the last thing you should do if you're trying to keep a good culture in a team is make the leader of the business look like a Superman or Superwoman, a super person. You can't, if you do that, then it makes it really hard to show vulnerability to that person because it is essentially potentially perceived as like a weakness or something.
Yeah.
So is there something that you that's a really big thing to build a good culture, and congratulations on it because it is a big thing. And the good thing is it helps you hire accordingly as well because you can get the right fit. Is there something that you did relatively early on in the journey of the agency that you realized like really quickly? You're like, wow, this is a winner. We're going to keep doing this. This works.
Yeah, I was actually. Well, I have had a bunch of crappy business managers. So many that I can make a list.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. I don't know. They're growing trees.
Maybe they should buy a leadership and management course from the OMG Center.
Yeah, maybe they should. I think they should. Listen, all you crappy managers, bring a coach to take help. No, but actually, yeah, exactly that. To take help. But I have had a list of things I don't want to do. I don't want to be like enforcing things on people. I want them to feel safe. And then you can only go to yourself. What makes me feel safe? What makes me feel happy? What can I do? And then ask. I mean, you can always ask people, do you like me to do this or that? Or do you want me to be like more managing you? Do you want to be micromanaged or not? Or do you want, because sometimes if a person is very junior or very insecure in the workspace, maybe they want to have really direct directions of
sometimes
what
they
to do. Sometimes that is what the person needs. But if we also have an open discussion about that, then I know, and then I can give that.
Yeah, I think you said it just there. There's a principle which I kind of work to, and like a management continuum, for want of a way of putting it. So there's some people that you give almost no autonomy to, and you give all direction, and that's because they both either need or want it. And then over time, as they become more trustworthy and skilled and able to take more pressure and more work, you give them more autonomy. And that sliding scale moves depending on the person, the situation, the time, the task, and their current kind of lifestyle. Let's say someone's had a family bereavement or something like that. You take autonomy away from them, and you'd give them more, say, box checking style work to do, so that they don't feel the pressure of having to do much more on top of all the other labors in their mind.
Exactly that. And I also do one-to-ones very often where we talk about these things, and that is like a safe hour when they can talk about whatever they want to. But I would also ask, like, how do you think this went when we had this project? Did I like?
Should I buy a training course?
Exactly. They were like, yes. No. So yeah, we talk. We do have an open, like, communicative style in the office, and I like that.
So all very positive, and I think open communication is, regardless of what kind of business you run, realistically, regardless of what kind of business it is, whether it's flipping burgers at a restaurant or working in a digital agency or the CEO of a bank, open communication when you're working with people is really, really essential. And if you get it the right balance, people you get more out of people without putting more on people, which is great. So conversely to that success, what would you say is something that you did or found that you once you realized, crap, this isn't something I should be doing, you stopped it, and what was that? What did you do?
So for the longest of times, it felt like I did this by myself, or I haven't taken help when I needed it, and everybody needs help, like, with, because I'm not a trained business leader. I'm just good at what I do. And then I started the agency. So I have no idea what to do, like business wise. And so I read a lot of articles and went to classes and watched YouTube and the things that you do as an SEO. That's how you solve problems.
You do.
But
And currently you solve all your problems with ChatGPT as well, just to say it, because then I get the keyword in my content because everyone else seems to be going after it.
Exactly.
Sorry.
But too late, I actually turned to people asking for help. Like, how do I do this? Because that would have been a shortcut for me to cope better with the business and also learn how to do it better, business wise.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that I do regret. And we need help. We need mentors. We need people to rely on and talk to.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, I literally have a business that helps those sorts of people.
Yeah.
One thing which I know, having been an agency leader at the same time in the past as well, is and similarly with all kinds of support, you need to ask for it. It's different when you've got a piece of software and you're trying to get people to buy it. You knock on their door, or you send them a cold email, or you pick up the phone and say, hey, I have this thing that solves this thing. That's a functional add this plus that equals solution. Whereas with any kind of mentoring, any kind of coaching, or anything like in that realm, the person who comes to you, or you go to them, they need to be kind of ready for it. I've worked with some agency leaders in the past who they had a big stack of self-help books and they were untouched, and then they came to me, and it was a lot of this is an issue this week conversation, so it ends up being therapeutic mentorship in a sense, rather than helping them to solve their real kind of build their business problems. And it's because they weren't ready. And when you're ready when you're ready. So as much as you maybe think it was a failing, unless you wanted it and you were ready to take the advice years ago, then it's kind of a lesson that you learned in order to get to the point where you go, right, I'm now ready for someone to come in.
This is super interesting. I think you're right here. I probably was ready. We're having renovation moments here in the podcast.
This is great. So yeah, like, if you feel, if you're an agency leader and you're listening to this, and you should be listening to this, and if you're not, hopefully I can telepathically tell you that, because you wouldn't be listening to this if, oh my God, I'm getting a bit meta. So if you're an agency leader listening to this and you kind of think, I'm ready for some help, then ask for help. There's loads of people out there who can do it. The OMG Centre is obviously one of them. But I think if you're not ready for help, but you know you've got problems, then that's when you do start the process of a bit of YouTube and reading an article or reading a book, because you do need to get to the point almost by yourself to realize that you can't fix some of these things without a mirror to hold up against all of your ideas and stuff. Which I think is valuable to think that way. Otherwise, you do just spend money and you don't know what you're getting for it.
Chris, can I be honest here? I've read.
This is being recorded.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm married.
Yeah. Not that kind of honesty. But I read a bunch of books, and I've listened to a bunch of pods and YouTubes and follow people, etc., etc. But then starting to talking to mentors such as yourself, but I've also talked to a few others. It's a whole different thing. Like it's eye-opening, door-opening. Everything is different. Like you cannot get this from like self-educating material.
It's very hard to, because it's the outsider's perspective.
Yeah. And you don't get it. Like it's not designed for you.
Yeah. And that makes it difficult, but it's not impossible. It's just it costs a lot more because you make more mistakes along the way.
True that.
So if you could go backwards in time now, to when the agency became an agency, otherwise rather than like a vector for billing people, what would you give advice to yourself? What one kind of piece of advice you feel that you might have listened to 6-ish years ago?
So I think it was like 3 years or something in the business where I took this advice, and I thought to myself, why didn't I know this before? But that was the first thing you need to do is build a buffer of money, and you sort of have to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Even though you might not, your internal compass might not agree 100%. But there's a buffer that you need of money to be able to say no to things that you don't like that much. But having that said, a client that or a project that you don't agree with at all, you have to get rid of that, because it's going to steal energy from you so much that you might lose other clients, or you might not see other projects coming on. So you actually lose in that end because it takes too much energy from you. And there's a fine line there that you don't see really. Like it's hard to see. Like, am I saying yes now because I need this money? And yes, that is the case. But is this project or client taking too much energy from me, and I dislike it too much? And often you see that after you rage quit and you burned all the bridges and etc.
Yeah. It's that balance is super hard to get and super hard to find, because if you go too far saying yes, then you end up miserable but with lots of cash and no friends. And then you find it even harder to say no later when you can afford to.
Yeah, but there's the situation where you say yes and you have loads of cash. You can live with that. But if you have a situation where you say yes and you don't have loads of cash because you are miserable and you can't make all the cash because it takes the energy, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Say no before that happens.
Yep, I love it, and that's great thinking. Would you have listened to that advice though?
If someone had talked to me about it, maybe I had been more seeing the problem coming before I did rage quit and burned all the bridges with a few clients.
So let's imagine 6-ish years ago.
Yep.
You're sitting there working on the agency on your own, and then poof, out of nowhere came the 6-year future version of Ulrika riding a unicorn and said, I've got one piece of advice to give to you, Ulrika. You got to listen. Would you have listened to it?
I might have said, yeah, but I don't understand. I hear you,
yeah,
but I don't understand.
Yeah.
So
it's hard
probably, yeah. But I would at least have started. I would have planted a seed and then started to think about it sooner.
So, if there's if there's an agency leader or someone who's just about to start an agency right now listening, what if they were to come to you and they say, look, I've listened to your podcast, really great, brilliant audio quality, everything was fantastic. What one piece of advice would you give them if they asked for a piece of advice about starting their own agency?
So that would be make money, make a buffer, say no to people you don't like or projects you don't like, but say yes to people you actually like and you can work with. To create that buffer, but be picky with the people you surround yourself with, because also in the beginning, you are going to have a lot of people who want to give you advice or just want to hang out with you or hang around you. Yeah. Be picky with those people, because not all of them are going to be good for you.
And it can cost more in the long run if you don't sort of think that way. And I think the digital marketing industry in particular has this. There's a strangeness with the kind of the FOMO style thing. You've got to be in the group with stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's not good for your business. If it is, great, but it's not always good for the business. So I think, you're right. Create a buffer, say no when you can, or when your gut tells you to. And
Yeah.
your gut's almost always right, unless you're, not very good at understanding how money works or businesses work. And and I think, pick your cheerleaders. It's probably a good way of putting that.
Yeah.
Which is great advice to end the podcast on. This is it feels like 10 minutes have passed, listener, but actually they haven't. So thank you very much for coming on, Ulrika.
Thank you. I'm super happy that I could be on this pod. Thank you so much.
No trouble at all. And in the next episode, we'll be listening to another agency leader to hear things that they've done terribly and things they've done great and the lessons they've learned along the way. So thanks very much for listening.